Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you all for joining us for our second Entrepreneur Speaker series of the semester. I am Shanika Turner. I am an assistant professor of business administration here at Georgia Highlands College. I will be the moderator for the series. At any time, please feel free to post any comments or chat or questions into the chat, and or you can send them to me directly if you like, and we will be answering questions right after the speakers are done. Several studies on television are, or several shows on television are now featuring married couples who are entrepreneurs. They document how they are running a business or multiple business together. This is a trend that you will continue to see more and more of. Family run businesses comprise 64% of the US gross domestic product, and husband and wife teams run a 1.4 million businesses nationwide. And running a business with your partner can bring a definitely a unique advantage. Today we have a husband and a wife who are doing amazing things in the music industry. The Chicago-based songwriter and musician, primarily known for being the drummer for major hip hop recording artist Big Sean, is now venturing into a lane of his own. With his debut single, As Good as It Gets, Hank's unique approach to music is truly felt. Hank is looking to inspire a new way of thinking, one not driven by fear or the pursuit of perfection, but by the pure passion and love. Hank's journey is just beginning and he's ready to share his art and message with you all. We also have NYLA XO, and she is an LA born, Chicago based songwriter, producer, and keyboardist. She's toured nationwide with Betty Who and has graced the America's Got Talent stage as a beloved member of the house band. Her music has also been featured on the CW and BET. At her core, Nyla is an end-to-end artist, crafting everything from striking harmonies to supporting visuals. Her music meditates on the best bits and occasional pitfalls of being human, from passionate love to personal growth, and does so with a vibrant yet velvety touch, drawing inspiration from other genre bending artists like India Arie, Nelly Furtado, and Kimbra. She's a musician and a maker and delightfully sassy motivator. From studio to stage to screen, Nyla XO leaves nothing unexplored and encourages her listeners to do the same. We are beyond excited to have both Hank Music with us and Nyla XO with us. And I want to welcome them to our speaker series and let them know that the floor is theirs now. So you are free to tell us and talk to us about your entrepreneur journey.
Well, first, I want to say thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you, Mrs. Turner, for having us. We're super excited to speak with you guys about our journey, our path, and just what we've gone through within the music industry. There have been ups, there have been downs, there have been good moments, and highlights, and we're still in the pursuit of just taking it to another level. So we'll just start with kind of where we started and just how we even got to where we are today. So, as she said, my name is Hank. My name is Henry, actually, but Hank is my artist production name. It stands for Harvest and Nurture Knowledge. And if that's not good, it also is the nickname for Henry. So that's why I use it. So basically my story, I started playing drums when I was 3 years old. And I've been just doing music pretty much my entire life. But for me, music really wasn't the focus until my later years in high school, where basically I just, focused primarily on sports. It was football, basketball, NBA, NFL. That was pretty much everything for me, and, it just didn't work out. And, there was another plan for me. So for me, after that, I decided to just really take my focus primarily on drums, and that's really where the just kind of everything kicked off for me. And before I get ahead of myself, I just completely overstepped and didn't even let my wife speak. So
that's okay.
I definitely want to give her a chance to introduce herself first. But we'll get back to me after she kind of introduces herself as well.
Well, my name is NYLA. It is so nice to meet you all, and thank you. It's totally okay. This is a part of the balance of, each of you finding your strides. But no, I'm okay with you sharing about yourself. But yeah, so he has a drumming background. I am a keyboard player. I've been playing piano since I was very, very young. Been singing since I was very, very young. My mom is a musician. My dad is a musician, and so I kind of grew up in a very musical household. And I never really had sports really to lean on. Mine was kind of between theater and music, and fashion design too was actually a huge passion of mine for a while. But I eventually really landed into really wanting to pursue music full time. And so I kind of did that all throughout high school and college, which is where we met, which I'm sure he'll speak about, but that's a little bit about me and then how our stories kind of merged together.
Yeah, so 17, that's really the year and the age and where I said I want to really pursue music at the highest level. So endlessly practicing. I literally used to just go insane when it came to practicing. I practiced like 8 hours a day, driving my mom and my stepdad absolutely insane, making so much noise in the neighborhood, just beating my drums all day. But, it just paid off. I started playing around town. I started a band with a couple of friends called Infused. We had like a smooth jazz band with me and a few of my other friends. And, we started playing local gigs around town in a small area called Lake County in Illinois. And then for me, my mother, she was really big on me getting my education. And as we are speaking to college students, it's very important. But for me, I just, I saw a different route. I really wanted to focus primarily on music, so I didn't really want to go just like the general academic route. So I went to CLC, a community college in Illinois, for a little while, and kind of tried the school thing. It just wasn't me, So I decided, hey, how can I make my mother happy and really pursue my passions? So I went to a music school in LA called Musicians Institute, and that's actually where we met.
Yes.
So that was at the age of 20. And 20, I am, just still young, still learning, still trying to figure things out. And I decide, hey, this is what I want to do. So I take the step, move to LA, didn't know anybody. It was just a major move that I made with myself when I first got to LA. My first night alone, I literally was on an air mattress with my laptop and hot dogs in the refrigerator. And it was just kind of, it was a new experience. I was scared out of my mind. I think I saw a bug my first night and called my mom and said, I want to come home. Like, it was just that deep. Like, I was like, what am I doing? But, once school started, then things kind of just, everything picked up and just like my whole mindset shifted. And I was just really ready to lock in and focus in on just making my dreams come true, which was to be, a professional musician. So from that point, I just began networking, and our school was open 24 hours. So you could literally live there if you wanted to and just practice all day, all night. There were jam sessions going on. You got to, meet new people and just network. And then we're in LA. So, there's stars and just all type of just cool opportunities and cool things happening. Just a lot of cool energy going on within the environment. So from there, I'm 6 months into school, and then I get the opportunity to compete for a scholarship, which my school did. It's a competition that's Stanley Clark. He's a jazz musician. He hosts the competition every year called the Stanley Clark Scholarship Competition. So I ended up competing in that competition, and I won the scholarship. And then from there, I'm just thinking it was good. I won the scholarship, moving on my life, and just ready to keep, pursuing music. But then 2 months later, they actually hit me up to they gave me the opportunity to go on tour with them. And that's really where my life changed. So from that point, I went on tour with Stanley Clark and George Duke, the late, great George Duke, who was also another legendary jazz musician. And I toured with them for about a year. And up to George's passing, I was, grateful and thankful to say that I was one of the last drummers to play with him. But immediately after that, things kind of aligned. My name started to kind of ring bells around LA, and, word of mouth and just meeting people and just making connections. Someone had called me to do the Big H.A.N.K gig. And from that point, that was 2013, the summer of 2013 was my first gig with Big H.A.N.K. And I've been his drummer ever since. And that's kind of my story as far as where I began, like drumming wise. So, yeah.
Yes. So we, as Hank mentioned, we met at music school. It's Musicians Institute in Hollywood. And so he's originally from Chicago. I'm not sure if he mentioned that, but he's originally from Chicago. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. So I also went to a school prior to Musicians Institute, and I was kind of doing more theater stuff. And I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to, the route that I wanted to take, but I did eventually end up going to MI and studying voice and keyboards. And like he mentioned, it was really, really nice to be able to be in an environment where music is surrounding you. There's people who are just all about what they're doing. And at that point, it's like a lot of us didn't have a lot of responsibilities as we do now. And that time is super, super precious, because that's the time that you can really kind of explore and get to learn more about yourself. Not to say you can't do that as you get older, but the older you get, there's just more responsibilities. And so that was a time that was super precious to us. And I think that's one thing to, always, even now, just kind of instill in yourself is, being able, as you mentioned, to be networking and to be around like-minded individuals is always super important, because there's nobody that's gonna be there and support you like your tribe. And we're still learning that as we're going years into this, just really trying to find our people. And it's not always something that happens so fast. Sometimes it does. And he's made lifelong friends that are from college and that all do the same thing. But sometimes there's a journey in that too, in finding people that are just like-minded, that will push you, that you can be inspired by, that will help you. And so that's something that we have a lot of friends from school, and just constantly being in that environment was really good. So for myself, I had an interesting turn where for a point, I was a part of a girl group, actually, that H.A.N.K from NSYNC had put together. And I thought that, this is going to be it. I'm going to be in a girl group. I'm like shooting to the stars. And that it did not happen that way. It was nothing bad, but there was actually 12 of us, which is crazy. It was modeled off of a K-pop group, which is a lot of people all in one, girl group. So I wasn't in school at that point because I had went to be a part of this girl group. And after that, and it kind of dissolved, just the girl group, it just wasn't really compatible. We kind of all went our different ways. And that was when I was like, okay, now I'm back at square one as myself as an artist. And what does this look like for me? So I really started doing a lot of, more keyboard gigs, still doing my original music. He was kind of touring. Where do we even talk about when we got married? Oh my goodness.
There's so much.
There's a lot, but long story short, I started doing more keyboard gigs in Los Angeles. There's a lot of different opportunities to do, things like America's Got Talent, where I was playing for different contestants, playing for different artists and traveling. And that was my first experience traveling, was going to Finland actually for an artist named Sarah. And we actually got to see each other in Finland, which was crazy, a month before we got married, and we hadn't seen each other for a while. He was on tour. But that was kind of my first taste of traveling and touring. And do you want to talk about a little bit about that, about what it's like to be a touring musician? Or
yeah, so for me, my experiences with touring were they were kind of different. Like I said, I went from playing with these legendary jazz musicians, then I went to playing with this mega star, Big Sean. So it's kind of two different worlds, like the first year of my touring life with Stanley Clarke and George Duke, I was playing with older, like more seasoned musicians, and they were kind of like father figures, almost like mentors, to go to that world where they had stories, and, it just was such a great experience to just hear some of the things that they talked about, from like working with Michael Jackson and, working with Chaka Khan, and just all these amazing figures, and then to go to the world where I'm playing with Big Sean is just like, it was night and day. So two totally different experiences. And one thing that I really took from that is just really having your business affairs in order. Because that was one thing. I was just super young when I started touring. So I was 20 years old when I first started touring, and I'm 31 now. So basically I've been touring the majority of my adult life. And, you know, as a young kid, you're just excited to get out there on the road, and you're just like, oh my God, I get to go on tour with Big Sean. I'm going around the world. Like I'm blessed to say I've been around the world before I was really even 25. So it's like, I've seen a lot, I've done a lot, but it just there was such an immaturity, you know, that took some time as far as just like learning how to manage my money and, you know, learning how to save and learning about LLCs and learning about, you know, just really constructing myself as a business, because I didn't look at it as that at first. You know, I really looked at it as just, you know, oh man, I get to tour, like, let's go. I didn't care about anything else. The paperwork, I filled out my W-2 and I thought I was good, you know. So, you know, it was so much more that I had to learn, but just the experiences alone, you know, it's second to none. You know, especially when you're with a good group of people. And I've been very fortunate. Big Sean, he's an amazing boss, an amazing person, amazing artist. And, you know, we were taken care of, because I have a lot of friends that also tour with different artists, and I've heard horror stories, you know, and I have my fair share too, you know, getting off the road, touring for months at a time and being broke. You know, it's like there are real moments like that, especially when you mismanage your money. So like one thing that I started to really take into account as I matured and got older, just the importance of really managing all of the different structures within a business. And even if you're just you by yourself, you are a business. As you know, as an entrepreneur, like you cannot look at it any other way. Like you have to see yourself as a business, especially as musicians, because without that structure, there's so many ways you can lose and just get screwed over and just, you know, taken advantage of, and it happens every single day. And that's one thing I had to learn the hard way. But, you know, I'm very grateful for my experiences, because now, you know, in running multiple businesses now, I understand the importance of what has to be done. Still learning so much and still making a lot of mistakes, trust me. But there's so much that I have learned and just picked up on and just been able to adapt to and just really transition the right way, you know, just from the things that I learned as a 21-year-old kid, you know, out on the road doing dumb stuff, you know. So it's really been good transitions, and just like now having more of an understanding, you know.
And so kind of what he chatted about, you know, as far as being able to, you know, manage your finances, all of those things, there's a lot of aspects that will separate you from just being the average artist. You know, as he mentioned, you know, there's plenty of drummers out there. There's plenty of keyboard players, plenty of singers. And so there's a lot of characteristics that are involved as far as making you stand apart that are outside of even just the talent, but about, you know, your mindset. And again, these are all things that we are continuing to work on, even as we speak to you today. But things like, you know, being professional, it sounds just so simple, but being professional, being on time, being someone who communicates well, making sure you're on top of your emails, your communications, those things are super important. And that's something that he's been really, really good at, that he has been able to not take over, but you know, there's people who will call him because he's reliable. And there's simple skills that we can all just really hold on to that we don't always just think about, but that are just super important in our growth as entrepreneurs. And so that's one of them. Knowing the business end of things, knowing your value, and, you know, researching the market, researching, okay, what should my rates be? And it constantly evolves. I mean,
knowing your worth.
Yeah, knowing your worth. And it's tricky because there's so many different scenarios. Like right now we're living in Chicago, and I've done all sorts of different things, like all different kind of gigs that you can imagine. I have, for the past 4 years, I sing a couple nights a week at a restaurant downtown, great steak and seafood, but it's an amazing restaurant. I've been there. I've been singing there for, like I said, 5 years. And that's its own thing with rates and, you know, knowing, okay, how much should I be getting paid here? And then there's times people ask me to do private events, or there's people asking me to, you know, do background vocals for them on a gig, keyboards on a gig, or asking me to record vocals for a song of theirs. And it can be very, very challenging sometimes to really look at yourself from the outside in and say, okay, you know, something my dad always used to say, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard before, is, you know, that it's not always like, he always used to say, you know, why does Kobe Bryant get paid as much as, you know, he was getting paid? And it wasn't because of just his skills, but all the time that he put prior to that, to building that, all the things that you don't see. And so it's the same with us, is that, you know, sometimes at face value, we might think, oh, my pricing is this for an hour, but because, you know, I'm just playing for an hour, but it's not you just playing for an hour. It's all the years that came before that, where you spent money investing on how to learn, where you spent money investing in lessons and things that you might be able to do. For example, I do a lot of visual design. I've studied videography and graphic design. I've been doing that for years. And so sometimes things that come really easy to me that I can whip up in an hour can take somebody else 10 hours or more to do. And so you have to look at your value, not just on the thing itself, but, you know, encapsulating everything. And so that kind of follows into, you know, what we're continuing to learn as we develop. And, you know, we Zoom fast forward, we got married, and ever since we've been trying to forge our way now as two artists. You know, obviously, there was a period of time where the touring slowed down for Big Sean, and it was a moment of like, okay, there's no touring. This was even pre-pandemic, like a couple years before, or like a year or so before.
Like 2018, 19.
Yeah, where it's like, okay, you're in this place. There's everything that you used to know is not there right now. And so how can you continue to have a voice? How can you continue to be out there? How can you continue to just do what you love? And so he really found his way as far as songwriting and really diving into that and exploring something new. And I think a lot of people have experienced that in 2020 as well, as kind of regrouping. And so we're constantly in this cycle of regrouping. And, you know, aside from just drumming, something that really stood out about him is that he had a drum apparel line called Mac Bear Apparel. It was a clothing line, and it was kind of drum focused and designs. I would design all of the items. I was kind of like not the management, but the behind the scenes, getting all the store set up, designing everything. And he was the vision, you know, being able to say, okay, this is what I think, you know, drummers would think is cool. He had a show called the Mac Garage, which is like 7,000 subscribers.
Yeah, I still have all of these things. Yeah. She's speaking in the past tense, but we're coming back. So, you know, one of the things that like that's a good segue into just speaking about like truly having structure. One of the reasons why, you know, some of the things she spoke about with my apparel line is still something that I believe in wholeheartedly. And as I said, I'm bringing it back this year. But one of the things that we lacked in that season was just a true just plan and like structure, and just the importance of just having a business plan and knowing exactly what your goals are, knowing exactly, you know, what the overall vision, like where the finish line is for you. Or if there is not a finish line, you know, what's the pathway in which you're trying to go? Because that's one of the things that we ended up falling short. You know, we didn't plan well enough and we burnt ourselves out. You know, we were shooting these videos like so constantly at our house in LA, and we were editing nonstop. You know, and it just got to a point where it's like, oh my gosh, we're overwhelmed, but we're setting these unrealistic deadlines where I was like, all right, yeah, we can put a video out every week and do this, and without like kind of batching content. And as content creators, which we are, you know, it's very important to batch your content where you have things already ready to go so that you're not playing catch up, or you're not trying to, you know, go on the fly, because that's a lot of things that burn creatives out. You know, they're trying to keep up with, you know, what's going on, the trends, and the you know, everybody posting this. It's an oversaturated amount of content right now. So it's like, as you're trying to keep up with that, you know, if you're not already prepared and already have these things in place, you can very well find yourself in this place of burning out. So, you know, that's one of the things that we also learned along the way, you know, in building these different businesses, because we have Mac Bear Apparel, which is the apparel line. And then we also have the Static Quo, which is, you know, this is basically our music entity where, you know, we're all under the umbrella of the Static Quo, myself, H.A.N.K, NYLA, so as artists, and we also work with other artists and just have our whole team. And that's something we're building as well. But between ourselves, between that and between the Static Quo, you know, all of these things require structure, you know, so it's definitely just something to always keep in mind as you're trying to, you know, just kind of just propel in your business, whatever industry you may be in, you know, everything requires structure.
And and one thing that I can say too is that we have learned a lot is you don't want to be like us where we look back and we kick ourselves, because when we look back, we'll go back through videos that we had and stuff. And at the time, it felt like, oh, you know, it's not getting that much attention. But when we look back, we're like, what were we thinking? Like, we would have things that, you know, maybe, you know, a venture that we would have, like, you know, the clothes, for example. We had that and didn't give it enough time to fully grow. But looking back, we were at a place where we're like, wow, that was actually incredible what we were doing for being around for such a short time. Same for his YouTube channel. He had the YouTube channel and he would invite a bunch of drummers that play for artists like Kendrick Lamar, Justin Bieber, and they would all come. He would interview them. They would play drums. And it was all kind of tied into the Mac Bear apparel. But he had let that kind of sit. We had moved to Chicago, so that kind of stopped for a while. But we looked back, and without us doing anything, it grew to like 7,000 subscribers or something like that. And at the time, like we didn't even have that amount of subscribers.
The last video I did, we had 2,000 subscribers, and 4 years later, without posting anything, it grew to 7,000. So it lets you know that there's a lane for it, and people were actually looking for it. Like, people see me today, like anytime I go to any music related event, they're like, oh, you're Henry McDaniel, the Mac Garage guy. And I'm like, yeah. Yeah. So it's like, it's cool to get noticed for that, but it also is like a smack in the face, like, dang it, why did I stop? You know, so it's like, you know, you got to give things time, like she said, to grow, you know, and if you believe in something enough, like, don't just let it dwindle away. Like, you should really, you know, just pick it up, even if it's something that's been shelved for a while. Like, if it was something you believed in at one point, you know, you definitely should bring it back to life. But, you know, don't be you still got to be realistic as well. Like, you know, if you see that it's not working, maybe
have a plan. That's
re-strategize, you know what I mean?
Re-strategize.
But yeah, like, definitely things like that, it really does just, it is always a constant reminder to just never stop, you know, just because you feel like, oh man, people aren't seeing it, or, you know, just like, man, why doesn't anybody just, you know, why doesn't anybody like it? Because it's probably not that they don't like it. It's just that it hasn't caught on yet, you know, so just give it time and just keep working at it, because
you will regret it. You will be like us.
Trust me.
And then it takes more work sometimes to have to regroup. And, you know, there's something about it too, that when it can be a little bruise to the ego sometimes when you start over constantly, because, you know, you want to really establish trust with the people that are, you know, viewing you, people who are listening to you, supporting you. And when you're constantly stopping, it's sending a message to those people that, oh, I can't fully lean into what it is that they're doing. And that can hurt, you know, it can hurt on the other side of it. And that causes like a whole other bunch of issues where then you're not trusting yourself anymore, where you're starting not to believe in yourself. But it's not because of, you know, necessarily outside factors. It's because, you know, you have not proven yourself to be reliable to yourself. And so I think that's super important. And I know that that's something that I've struggled with constantly is, you know, I will get in a really great place and I see the momentum going and I'm like, this is amazing. This is amazing. And then again, as he mentioned, without a plan, you burn out. So then you ghost, you know, you go ghost for a while and then you're popping back like, oh, hey, here I am. And there's nothing wrong with taking time off. But that needs to be something that's almost planned, or like you're expecting to take time off, you know, kind of like if you were in a job to say, you know what, I'm taking, you know, this time for self-care, mental health, whatever it may be, but that's planned. It's not just spontaneous and just because now you don't feel like doing the work because X, Y, and Z, you know. And so it's really important, as he mentioned, to just have a plan and really just establish trust with your audience or your consumers or whatever it is. And knowing what that looks like, you know, think about it when your favorite artists, you know, they just fall off the face of the planet and you're like, where did they go? Or like, you know, if you go to a restaurant and you've been going there for years and then you go there and they're not open anymore and you didn't have any notice or anything like that. And you're just like, oh, it's kind of disappointing. And so, sometimes just being able to communicate those things and just really finding a rhythm in that sense, I think is important.
Definitely. And I think we should also share kind of like our story, kind of like how we met, and just, so as we mentioned before, we met in school, Musicians Institute. I was already there for a few months. NYLA was the new girl, the new girl. She's always the hot new thing, this little cutie just walking around the school. So, I was in a relationship at the time.
Oh gosh, you guys throw this. No, listen, we're just gonna keep pushing.
But we had just broken up actually, but there were still lingering effects. So as NYLA came, it was funny, just a short story. So we were at this little bar that we would go to across the street from our school just to hang out, and it was one of our friends performing. And like I said, NYLA had just gotten there. So yeah, I'm there with my ex at the time, and we got into some little argument for some reason, and she was just like, "Why do you want to be with me?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she was like, this is NYLA walking by, so she says to me, "Why don't you be with someone like her?" And I've never met NYLA. We never really talked, and she's the new girl at school. And then 10 years later, here we are, married.
Yeah. Married for 6 years.
Yes, married for 6 years, dating for 10. And not for 10, but together for 10. But basically, when we got to school and we actually became, we started dating and singing each other, I was strictly doing drums, and she was like she did everything. Like, she was honestly so inspirational to me. Like, and when I started doing what I'm doing now, more of the production, songwriting, and as an artist, like, she taught me so much. She taught me how to edit videos. She taught me about, playing keys. And she taught me so many different things that I picked up at a later in my life, with bass, drums. Bass and keys are two instruments that I just started playing 4 years ago, a few years ago. But basically, she did everything. I just played drums. And when, like she said, Big Sean decided to take a pause in touring and all this stuff, I was lost. You know what I mean? And it's kind of cliche, like music saved my life, but it really did, because when I started writing songs, like, it really took me from a dark place. Music was just like there for me in a different way than I've seen it before, than what I was used to. I was just used to getting behind the drums and just, playing. So, for me to get into that space of writing and, producing, I just fell in love with it. And then naturally, I have this amazing singer in my household. So everything I don't sing. So everything I wrote, she ended up singing for me. So that kind of segued into us, working together. Mm-hmm. We just started writing songs, and we just started producing and making music constantly every single day. And it was just fun, it just was a natural, just, transition into this next phase of my life, in production and songwriting. And then we also ended up starting the group. Static Quo is now like more of our label type of thing, but before it was us as a music duo, mm-hmm. Which brings me to my next point. What is it like working with your spouse? Don't do it. No, I'm just joking. It's amazing. It is amazing. But in working with your spouse, you really have to separate just pride and ego, and it's more of a sensitive environment to be in, because more things are taken personally, especially in a creative environment. It's like, I don't really like that, and he'd be like, well, I don't like what you just did. Then it becomes back and forth, like, it just becomes super petty, but like, we have really come to the understanding and the realization, like, when we really lock in, like, there's nothing that we can't do. Like, what we achieved together has surpassed anything we've ever done individually. Just the quality of work, and just the manpower behind everything. We just achieved so much at a high level, and I just really appreciate that we have come to this place where we see, like, man, we are just unstoppable together. You know what I mean? If you understand those things, like knowing your strengths and weaknesses, like even outside of a relationship, just knowing, like, hey, I really just don't know how to do this. finding people that are willing to work with you and that see your vision, like-minded people who can help you, kind of elevate in that area of weakness. That's super important. Just finding the right circle of people, whether it's friends, whether it's family, just knowing where you fall short and really just allowing yourself to put that pride aside, ask for help. Like, that's one of the biggest things. I ask so many questions, like, all the time. Like, to me, there can be some dumb questions, I guess, but I don't see it that way. Like, if you don't know, ask somebody. It's that simple. And that really goes a long way in you just elevating your business, elevating your life, just really asking for help, because we try so much as people to, handle everything on our own, or do it behind closed doors, where we don't want people to think that we're less than, or we're not as knowledgeable, or we're not as, qualified. But it really is just a matter of, if you want the best, you need to get the best on your team.
And that's what it comes down to. He's really good at that, because I am sometimes what he speaks of like, I'm like, oh no, these people are going to think if I don't know this, then, they might view me a certain type of way. And both of us are really good about, I think there's a delicate balance. There is, obviously ask questions, but also, do your research as well. Yeah. And also lean on some of your own experiences. But both of us, have, obviously a lot of us attend YouTube University, and really diving into just, really becoming multifaceted, or, kind of well-rounded as people, and different things that you're interested in. There's so many resources that are out there. But, like he mentioned, he has really made a lot of things happen because he has asked questions where there's things that I would be too afraid to ask, or like my pride would get in the way, but because he asked, and that's why it's good having him, because he can kind of balance that side of me, where he'll be the one to go out on a limb, or he'll be the one to ask somebody like, hey, she needs this, for this, like, will you help, whatever it might be. So that's kind of a way that, we've kind of helped. And then me being the really analytical side, I always really dive into the logistics of things, which is also really helpful, I think.
No, it's very helpful, because I'll just go spend money, and she's like, we don't have that.
Yeah, we don't have that. And, just different things of like, okay, this won't work. If we want to be able to do this, this is, how to do it. So we've kind of really balanced each other out really well in that sense. But, attesting to what he said about being able to just come together and how we're best together, there's a lot of projects that we have done, as Ms. Turner spoke earlier, we had music featured on All American, which is on the CW, Sisters on BET, this other show on Netflix. I feel bad that I just said this other show, but it was, it's about TikTokers living in a house.
It's about like a social media house or something.
Yes, but ironically, those are all songs that we did together. And not only were they songs that we did together, they were also songs that we just kind of did on a whim with no true intention. We did them for fun. We actually did them during quarantine, and we were just working a lot together. That was probably the best that we had worked together. We were creating videos. We were just really in a flow. And those songs we completely forgot about. And then those were all the songs that got picked up, not just my songs that were by myself, not his songs that were by himself. And so it's just a reminder that we do have something special when we do things together. And, also speaking to what we mentioned earlier about, not truly just abandoning things and shelving things, that there are still a lot of purposes for the things that you might think are, old, or, don't serve a purpose anymore, because those songs were old to us. And they were the ones, every time we find out what song got placed on TV, we're like, that's the song. So sometimes you just don't know what sticks. And so all that to say that you just need to keep trying new things, just keep pushing. Don't always care about the numbers. Again, speaking to myself on this, because I know that in this environment, it can be really hard to kind of break out of that numbers idea, or this idea of like, I didn't get this much engagement this week, or I didn't get this many numbers. And it can just be a little paralyzing sometimes. And so really, really taking the time to, value what it is that you do. Again, knowing what you bring to the table, knowing that what you bring is special, and knowing that your community doesn't have to be this humongous thing. I think that's another thing too, as entrepreneurs, is realizing that you can do a lot with a small amount of people. And so you don't always have to think, even for myself, on Instagram, for example, something that I've always made a point to do is that when people follow me, I always, thank them. And people are always surprised at it. They're like, wow, I've never had anybody thank me for following them before. But I really value that connection, and I don't like to take it for granted. And I like to build those relationships. And those are the type of people that end up sharing all my stuff, or end up coming to a show or things like that, or supporting my songs. And so all that to say that there's a lot of people around you that if you just took a little bit more time and effort to also invest and be curious about them as people, and really building that really goes a long way. And just not taking it for granted, not taking that, oh, somebody followed me, this is a stranger or whatever, but there's really people on the other side of that, and you just be surprised. And so that's a really big thing as you go into your journey, is just really finding ways that's true to you, because that's not true for everybody. Like for him, that would be awkward to just DM people and say thanks for following me. Like that's not on brand for him. But it's like what is on brand for you? You have to figure out that for yourself, and how can you make that connection with other people. And those are the people, like there's that whole thing about, like, if you just have 1,000 true fans, and a certain amount of people that invest a certain amount of people that invest an amount, into you.
So say 1,000 fans spend $100 on you in the year, then that's a good living.
Yeah. So you just keep going into that and saying, okay, how can I create products or, music or whatever it is that continues to just build off of that idea. And really getting into that. So that's what I would say about that. But
and just be genuine and just be good people. Like ultimately, that's really like any industry is about relationships. Like you have to be likable. People have to like you. Like I could not have toured the last 8 years of my life without people liking me, because I'm with these people sometimes more than my family. So it's like if I'm in a situation like that, people want to like you. People should admire you. People should respect you, and that comes from just being genuine and just, having a genuine heart and just how you treat people. Because at the end of the day, that's really matters. People matter. People are the most important aspect of any business. People, we're all trying to get people's attention. So being a good person and just being good to people is really just, to me, that's the number one rule. I know how it sounds, but it is, it's like do unto others, as you want done unto yourself, and, just treat people with respect. And I think you can go really far in anything.
Yeah.
Did you want us to open the floor for questions, or how much time?
Yeah, definitely. So the floor is open for questions. So if you have any questions, you can post them in the chat, or you can send them to me directly. I did get a couple questions sent to me directly while you were speaking. First of all, I thank you again for coming. But I want to definitely say I am definitely waiting for the next Mac Bear apparel to come. I have my Mac Bear. I love.
So it's coming back with the vengeance.
I'm ready for that.
And this time we're here to stay.
Good. Yes. So one of the questions was, in your bio, it says you did end-to-end, like an end-to-end artist. Could you explain more about that?
Sure. So basically for myself, I have been visual and audio components have been a huge part of myself as an artist and my brand. So I have kind of everything that I do being end to end is like, it kind of goes in a circle. Like I design my own websites. I do my own photo shoots. I do my own video shoots.
Mine too, though. She does mine too.
I do all this stuff too. I have a heavy graphic design background. So kind of encapsulating everything as an artist, not just the sonic side, but really incorporating everything into that. So that's kind of what that means as an end-to-end artist, of from every little step of the way. It's like if you're seeing something from me, chances are I did it. It's all from me.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. She literally, when I was just playing drums, she was doing everything. She was producing, she was singing songs, writing songs, she was making websites, making business cards, doing photo shoots. Like our living room is literally our photo studio at times. Like she's done full-blown music videos in our living room. And it's just like, just being resourceful, with what you have.
Yeah.
You don't always gotta think that, I need the next biggest camera, the next best camera, or I need all the lights, I need all of that. It's really about just, like she said, YouTube University, figuring it out with what you have. Because for the longest, we have a pretty good camera now, but before we just had like a Canon T3i, which is a solid camera for what it was. But like now our videos are even better because we've upgraded. But when we had that, it was just
at the time, like people are like, whoa, like it's all about, how you really execute what you have. Like if you have a specific type of camera, you're not going to try to make this cinematic whole thing. It just doesn't work. You have to just realize like how using the tools that you have, how can you maximize, the vision with it. So a lot of things I did were very DIY, but they were very cool. You know what I mean? So,
and also not making excuses, because a lot of people make excuses for that. Like, especially today, like when it comes to video, at least, like if you have an iPhone, there's no excuse. The iPhone camera is incredible today. Yeah. So it's like, just like really just knowing that with what you have, all you have is all you need. You know what I mean? It's more than enough.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay, I have a question. It's kind of long. So, okay, what advice would you give for someone who's transitioning into music management? I've been around artists and I literally manage people every day as an executive assistant and production manager. My goal is to help artists find themselves and understanding the deals they're going into, building their brand and staying true to themselves. So the question was, what advice would you give someone transitioning into music management?
Oh, that's a good question. First, I would say find artists you believe in. If you're a managing artist, definitely start there with just finding artists that you truly believe in their music, you believe in their messages, you believe in just everything they stand for. And from that point, just kind of just looking at what they have already and just seeing where their strengths, weaknesses are, and then kind of just developing a plan around that. But also, like when it comes to content, figuring out a content schedule, figuring out what type of content, figuring out, so far with what they've done, who's resonating with them most and what audience, should you guys target, and just learning about all different types of things like Facebook advertisements and, just doing research in that area, because Facebook ads are really important, and it doesn't take a lot of money. You could run an ad for $5 a day, but it makes a difference. But it only really works when you're, looking at the analytics and you're really looking at, the statistics of who you're reaching, who's engaged, and, kind of that.
So as an artist, so he actually, there's a friend of mine, Lauren, shout out to Lauren, that she is kind of stepping in as a manager for me. And that's something that he kind of put together between us two. Again, asking the questions. And he's like, Lauren, what do you mean Nyla's manager? And we've been friends, but it was just one of those things. But something that, I'm going to give you a resource. There's a website called Smartest You. So that's SMARTISTU. And it might be like, I think it's .com, but just look up Smartest You. And that is a complete all around management resource where they're giving you resources like, spreadsheets, all sorts of things about being a manager and just kind of what that entails. So from that standpoint, I would say start there just to kind of, get in a space to start thinking about that. For myself, something that I look for in a manager and things that people, in general want from a manager, and what a manager does not do is a manager does not replace the artist side of the work that needs to be done. And something that I remember hearing, we do a lot of courses and things like that. But one of the courses that we did, people are like, I need a manager. And it's like, why do you need a manager when you're not doing anything on your own? What are you trying to manage here? And so a big thing is like finding someone that you can there's actually things to manage and figure out, but like you can't just be manager if the person isn't doing anything. It doesn't have anything to start off with. Not to say you guys can't grow together, but just as far as managing someone, you want to manage someone that's already kind of has an idea or come together to create that idea of what you want to do. But don't just have somebody just want you to be their manager. So now you're doing everything,
Some people, I think some people look for managers just because it sounds good to say, like, oh, I have a manager, or you can talk to my manager. But if you don't have any music, if you don't have any content, if you don't have anything to truly like put out there where they can start building these connections for you, then it's really not the time. But as far as like becoming a manager, that's why I say really finding artists that you resonate with, that you really believe in, because if you don't want to waste your time either. You want to really make sure that, if you're going to manage an artist, that is somebody that you truly feel that can go the distance, or
that you both really, and that you genuinely like too,
that you like as a person,
that it's like everything. Good, and good communication too is a skill set that you as a manager should have, which I know you mentioned that the person who's asked this question manages people and are curious excuse me, how to manage an artist. But a lot of the skill sets are very similar. It's again, knowing what you bring to the table, knowing your strengths, and knowing how can you best complement them, being really good at communication, being okay with being able to say somebody shoots an inquiry about wanting to have you for something, an event, or book you for something, that you have a manager that's like, okay, this is her rate, blah blah blah, really to the point, but also personable and things like that. But yeah, I think the key, like you mentioned, is just finding someone you believe in. You should have a passion for music too, because that's a whole other thing. Sometimes there are people who are like, okay, I'm going to step in and just be a manager because I'm just good business minded or whatever it might be. But it doesn't always work. Like, you truly have to have a passion for the music, the process, and, get involved in all sorts of, different things. So Smartest You, check that out. And check out, there's tons of resources on YouTube too there's Damian Keys too.
Damian Keys, DKMB. It's DKMB.com. It's that's
he
another.
Speaks on that as well. He has stuff on YouTube as well if you want to just check that out. Just look up,
Yeah, he has great information for all types of artists, from independent to major. It's really, really good information.
Yeah.
So that kind of segues into the next question in the chat was, how do I pick a good manager?
I think it's chemistry, like chemistry, because like I said, a manager today doesn't necessarily have to be someone who went to school for it, or,
sometimes the best ones are the ones who did not. Actually.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's just like finding someone who is good at building relationships and good at talking to people. That's really, managers are like really like the middleman between the artist and just connections, so finding a manager, somebody that can really communicate and sell you at the same time. Like, you want to find somebody who is good with emails, and someone who's technologically savvy enough to send text, whatever it may be, and just really finding someone who can, when they step into a room, it's like they can make any connection happen, because that's what it's really about. Like, managers are kind of like that middleman to help build relationships for that artist.
Yeah. So that, and then also finding someone that also is kind of on top of, I don't want to say trends that are happening, but kind of have a forward thinking mind, because you also don't, it's kind of, back to that thing where, you don't want somebody who's so stuck in old ways and isn't ready to evolve or isn't open to evolving. Like, you want somebody who is kind of like always thinking ahead and like, okay, like, this is kind of what's happening. What if we do this? So what if we do this? And challenges you, and also has, that similar mindset, similar values, that dream, dream big.
And that holds you accountable too, because you don't want anybody who's just waiting for you, because then that may not bring forth the best results. You want somebody who's going to be like, all right, NYLA, come on. We got deadlines. We got this, we got that. Like, we can't stop now. We got momentum. We need the next song ready. Not being a tyrant, but just like somebody that's gonna say, hey, like, let's remember the goal here. Like, let's stay focused.
Grounded.
And that's really what a good manager should be like.
Right. Okay, so we got another question. What is a good way to get exposure as a musician? I'm also a singer-songwriter from a rural small town of Dallas, Georgia. Also, I rely heavily on social media for my music, but I've hit a plateau on quality of production. An example of that is recording. I use only my phone, and while video recording is great, audio could definitely be better. Production is very expensive, which is why I haven't taken that leap just yet. So, what stepping stones can I take towards it or further? So first question is, what is a good way to get exposure as a musician? And then what stepping stones can I take towards it or further it?
This one, a little piece of it, just for the second end, but half of it, I think we could both speak on this too, is as far as exposure, is that, you being in a rural area, you kind of seem like, you already have that figured out, that that social media, being from a small town, really is the best way to get your face out there. Kind of what he talked about is starting to get into an aspect of like understanding how can you reach more people. So if you're hitting a plateau, trying to figure out, okay, well, I would be curious to know what this person exactly is putting out, but a big thing is obviously like targeting your audience, actually knowing for yourself who is your audience and how to maximize that reach. I'll let you speak and then I'll come back about part of it.
Yeah, no, I would say definitely social media is the best way to get exposure if you don't have those relationships just yet. But it's really comes down to just the consistency of it, because you have to be consistent. You have to be posting consistently, or you have to, like you said, the quality of your videos should be eye-catching and eye-grabbing. But to your point with the production, today it's easier than ever to make music. There's so many resources, free resources as well. I don't know if you have a Mac or if you have a Dell or PC, but both of those, there are free programs that you can use to produce. For Mac, it's called GarageBand. And then for Dell or PC, I believe, I forgot the name of it, but I can look it up, and I could relay that to Mrs. Turner, put it in the chat. But yeah, I think as far as the production, I think it really just take time to find the free resources, because there are so many free resources out there today that can help you with production. Even me, that I've been producing for a little while now, I still use free plugins, and I use things that I got for free that are some of my go-to, plugins that help me make music. And, I think it's just really figuring out what works for you and just experimenting a little bit, because singer-songwriters, there's so many of us out here. So for that, it's like you really want to, it is competition, you do want to stand out. So it's like really figuring out a way that not only your music shines, but your personality. I always feel like personality is a big thing that attracts people, because there will always be music that you're like, how are they doing this? Like, this isn't that good. And that's our opinion. But, there's somebody that loves this person, not just because of their music, but because like, oh my gosh, he's so funny, or she's so funny, or she's this and that. And, they draw people's attention more so because of them as people. And that's why I say, like, it really always comes back to people and just how you resonate with them through your personality, through your character, and just like letting your music be that last piece that reels them in. But yeah, as far as the quality, like I said, I would just explore some of those free resources and just kind of get a handle on just like the basics of music production, because there's a lot like that you can learn, especially on YouTube. There are endless amounts of videos.
I was going to say, I think a big thing too is like, again, I don't know exactly where you are as far as like, how long you've been doing this for, or, so I don't want to sound like too elementary or too basic, but at the same time, sometimes, people don't exactly know what to search for. So things to search for is like, as far as audio equipment, again, I understand everybody's financial situation is different. But something he has always, relayed to me is just really thinking about things that you can invest in that really save you time, that you think, time is very precious. Time is currency. So, sometimes, if you, make a YouTube search for things, microphones under $100. There are plenty of microphones out there for under that. USB mics, you can look for USB mics. There's plenty of things.
Audio interfaces.
Yeah. And again, not to say, because I know that $100 can also be a lot for someone at the same time, but also realizing, part of this journey is really also having to sometimes choose certain things and saying, okay, well, maybe instead of this eating out that I'm doing, if that's your situation, I am going to buckle down so I can save for this. If that means I'm putting $5 every month to save for this microphone to come up, you know what I mean? So that's a big thing about balancing and being able to say, like, you can't stay with the iPhone mic forever. You just can't. So what is going to take you there? So yeah, I would say make a search. You can look for even microphones under $50, $100, $300, whatever your budget is. Make that search in YouTube, and there's plenty of resources and people that have made videos about that, about the best equipment. As he mentioned, you can look up for, they're called DAWs. So search cheap DAW or whatever kind of DAW.
Yeah, like I said, there are free ones too. So.
Yeah, free ones. And then, also kind of like I mentioned, you want to just make the most of what you have. So that kind of goes into that of just saying, okay, if that is all you have, that is kind of a tricky one, but maybe that just means that I'm not sure if the person meant that they're using just the video and the audio from the thing, or if they're actually using this as a microphone. But there is an app, Voicey, for example, too, that has stuff. But all that to say is just
look into just certain things, because there are resources, and we know that struggle as well, just feeling like our quality isn't there, you know what I mean? But it came from research and just investing in ourselves and our crafts, where we took that next step for quality, because the quality battle is real.
Yeah. And you have to because at the same time, as we know from TikTok and stuff like that, sometimes the lower quality in some cases is actually not preferable, but it's more eye-catching on certain platforms. So if you're fearing like, hey, you know what, I'm kind of like stuck and I'm plateauing. I have not personally dove into being full TikToker, but I'd say that there are different platforms that just lend themselves to that kind of thing. So at the end of the day, if you're a singer-songwriter, on top of anything, no quality, no nothing can sacrifice if you can't sing, if you have not put in time into, your own craft too. That's a big thing too, because there's singers who are on this thing that are just really great, So making sure that, your talent, find people, if you need some mentors, other people to be, objective too, to be able to say, hey, this is really good, or maybe this is something you can work on. Again, I don't know where this person is, but
Thank you. No, these are, great advice. And we are at times. We do have some more questions, but we can't get to them right now. But I did want to definitely invite you all, because I am turning this speaker series into a podcast starting next semester. So possibly we can have you both back on there and finish answering some of these questions that are still popping in. I'm so very grateful that you took the time to be a part of this series today. We have our last speaker will be on April 13th, so you all can register at ess.highlands.edu. And the last thing before we go, I want NYLA and H.A.N.K Music, would you tell us how can we find you on social media? How can we, follow you and follow your journey and support you as artists?
Well, my Instagram is at @IamH.A.N.K Music. So that's IAMHANK Music. And that's pretty much my handle across all platforms. So you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and then on Spotify and Apple Music, my music, you can find me just H.A.N.K.
Perfect. And NYLA XO, what about you?
My Instagram is it's NYLA XO, or you can just go to nylaxo.com, and then it has all the stuff that you need if you want to find my YouTube. Yeah, he has his website. Just what is it?
It's Hank's Hideaway.
Yeah, so maybe just go there and then you all can find all our stuff. So hankshideaway.com, and then mine is nylaexo.com, and Instagram, all that stuff is on there.
Yeah, and thank you guys again so much for having us. Thank you guys to everyone who came and showed up and just was here to hang. It was fun. Sorry we didn't get to all your questions. We can be a little long-winded, but but we do appreciate everybody's questions, and hopefully we get a chance to talk to you guys again. Thank you, Mrs. Turner, for everything and just for having us. And yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I hope everyone has a very good afternoon, and we will see you all on the next series. Bye.
All right.
Thank you. Bye.